Hi, my name is Harris. I'm one of your podcast hosts. I'm also a lawyer at Treadstone Law. For most Canadians, buying, selling, or refinancing real estate, a lawyer is the last thing on their mind. That's unfortunate because lawyers play a vital role in the process. But what choices do Canadians have? Lawyers can be very expensive. Well, Treadstone Law offers resources to Canadians so they have access to the information they need. Whether you sign up for a live workshop or a mailing list, we cover topics to help you make informed decisions and avoid costly mistakes. It's advice you can start using today, and best of all, it's free. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click the link below to get access right now. If you're looking to retain Treadstone Law, it's never been easier. Our entire process is online. From completing the retainer agreement to your signing appointment, everything is done from the comfort of your own home. We're your digital lawyers. The best part of it is that you don't pay anything when you're retaining our firm. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click on the link below to retain us right now. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to another episode of Hustle and Grit. Today, back on our podcast is Scott Brown. He's the co-owner of Ultimate Mortgage Group, a successful mortgage brokerage in Ontario. Scott is here to talk about his journey as an entrepreneur. Welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Hey, Harris. How are you today?
Good. I know last time you were on the podcast, we spoke about the mortgage brokerage industry and all that has to offer, at least within Ontario, within Canada. And it was pretty good, valuable insight. It's still, I think, relevant today. So for those who want to check that out, I'm going to be leaving a link below. It was some pretty valuable information, especially with what's going on in the market right now. I'm going to leave the link and then Scott's information below too, in case anyone wants to reach out. But today we're going to do a little bit of a different conversation, or have a different conversation. And it's going to be more on Scott's journey as an entrepreneur. And that's something that I feel like in the media, it's glorified. So you see all these entrepreneurs out there saying, oh my God, and I just knew the vision from day one. And when in reality, anyone who's really thinking of starting a business, who is probably has just started, knows that the situation is a little bit different. So just to kick things off, Scott, talk us through a little bit about your journey in terms of starting a business. And I know that before you started your mortgage brokerage, you worked at a big bank, and to go from a steady job that is with a good employer that's going to be around for the foreseeable future, to go from that into a place where you're you don't know, or not everybody knows what kind of success they're going to be greeted by, what's going to happen. It's often scary for a lot of people, and it kind of reminds me of Elon Musk's little quote that he had where he says, entrepreneurship, it's like chewing a glass and looking into the abyss. So give us a little bit of a walkthrough in terms of what was going on in your mind when you were working and you're like, I might want to start a business.
All right. So, when I started with CIBC as a mortgage agent, is what they would call it, it was already a risky position to start with. So I'd sort of set a precedent for myself that I would be more inclined to take something with a commission base. So the first role with CIBC was a small base of, I think, 20,000 plus commission. So I jumped into a risky role at the bank to start with. So after being at the bank for 5 years and just deciding to go on my own as a broker, I'd already sort of taken a risk and it paid off. So I had that behind me to help kind of catapult me. So when I'm entering this new job, I do know mortgages already, which helps. And I do know that you have to work for it, in the sense of when you're on commission, you do have to work a little bit more differently and harder than in a different situation. And I figured that really, what's the harm in trying? Because I could always go back. I could be a mortgage agent through any other bank in Canada if need be. I left with good reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the decision to do it, it was sort of almost like a natural progression. And I guess in a lot of ways, I do gravitate to more risky decisions when it comes to mortgages and career and investments and stuff like that.
So you're saying like your temperament as an individual, not just in terms of your career, is more risk prone.
Yeah.
Like you have a good healthy appetite for risk in terms of jumping in. So then, because it is a still of a risk. I mean, you may know mortgages, but it's like now you have to worry about branding. You have to worry about all these other things that the bank was kind of taking care of. How did you
Mhm.
kind of approach all of that side? Was that something where you're like, that stuff you'll figure out as you go along? Or is it something that you were like, I'm going to figure this out before I leave? Like, how did you kind of approach all of that?
Yeah. So when I did leave, it was to join a brokerage that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily mine. It was
Mm-hmm.
still becoming self employed, but under someone else's branding. So I didn't have to do that. So really, when I left CIBC, my main focus was, and the hardest part is just to find your own clients. So
Okay.
that's where my focus lied is okay, if I'm going to leave where I walk in every day to 5 new files of CIBC clients looking to basically waking up every day and having to find my own five, how am I going to do that? So that was the consideration made when making the jump is okay, who do I know in as a realtor or investment advisor or accountant, friends, family, what's my circle of influence? And how do I create a database to manage that? And how am I going to target those referral sources? So that's the preliminary work that was done. And for that particular time, I joined a company called Home Loans Canada, which is just a brokerage. And I was able to get an in house arrangement, which means that you have a partnership with a particular realtor office. So I knew that I set that up prior to, I knew that that's what I was getting into
Mm-hmm.
is being able to have access to these realtors right away. So then really the only thing is and this is I think where the most people find it difficult being self-employed is the discipline. Is like all of a sudden you don't have to be at work at
Yeah.
9 a.m. sitting at your desk with a manager. You have to get up at 9 a.m. and you have to say, okay, what am I going to do today? Let's call. And I would randomly call those flyers you get in the mail for just sold this realtor's information. I'd call them randomly, try to get a meeting with them, a coffee. And some of those realtors I'd still deal with today after 15 years of being a broker. So it's just you have to kind of look at it like you're not on vacation, which is easy to
No, I mean, I
feel
speak
like at
to
the
I
beginning.
speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, not a lot, but enough of entrepreneurs, more than I would like to, who kind of when they're starting on off, it's like, yeah, I'm getting up at 11 or 12. I don't have a boss. I can work whenever I want to. When in reality, I think, and I'm full of quotes today, but Kevin O'Leary says, or was it Mark Cuban? One of the Shark Tank guys is like, an entrepreneur is somebody who works 80 hours a week because they don't want to work 40 hours a week. So because they don't want like there's just more work. There's just it's not like you can get up when you want. In fact, you get your job done as for example in your case. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, where you're doing all your clients' work, and then your second job is to plan for everything else.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and I think I did a business plan up
so
that
you
sort of
you formally wrote
nailed it
something
down.
out.
Yeah, like a general like point form kind of guy.
Yeah.
Didn't write something too formal, but sort of like, okay, what's my week going to look like? How am I going to structure my week? Maybe set goals like, okay, meet two new or possible referral sources per week, and sort of at least put a frame together of, okay, this is where I want to get to. How am I going to get there? What do I need to do to get there? I didn't focus too much on things that cost money, and that was like marketing,
Yeah.
anything like that. Like I did the basic, like a business card. You got your branding to some degree, but that's it. I didn't waste money on that. Really, I felt that my best asset is free, and that's just me talking to these people.
Yeah.
And maybe like taking them out for lunch and taking them out for dinner or
Yeah.
coffee or drinks. There, I'd rather spend the money there. So that's what I did at the beginning.
And that was actually my next question, was exactly how you started off, because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're going from like a good job, right, or some place where you've got an office to come in and work in, and like you said, you're speaking to your manager. Then when you start on your own, you have limited resources. There's not a lot of revenue coming in, so you're trying to figure out, where am I going to put these resources to work? And a lot of times people's mindset is, again, I see this more often than I want to as well, is to get swag. So you get branded things, so like, oh, this is my company. Or you spend your money on things that are not going to show you an immediate return. So how did you, and I know that you kind of briefly went through it. How do you prioritize where that spending was going? Was it just purely, like you just said, relationship building? Or was there some kind of criteria in your mind that you're kind of putting everything through to say, this is where my funds are going?
Yeah, like I think unfortunately in this industry there isn't really a lot of overhead costs. It's just, you're not getting
Yeah.
an office space. You're not starting with employees. It's really like a one-man shop. So I worked from home, so I didn't have any of those overhead expenses. So I really kept it simple and knew that really it's just you just need the basic things that you would give out, whether it's the business card or a
Mm-hmm.
flyer or whatever it may be. I think I had a flyer at the time that just sort of gave me a little bit of like a bio of what I do. So I put, some effort and some time and some expense into that. I paid for my licensing to get licensed, obviously, and that was it. And then I would prioritize, like, if I'm calling realtors or getting referral sources, I want someone that does business.
Yeah.
So, I would prioritize my spending on those type of referral sources. I would put my money there. When you have that in-house arrangement that I talked about earlier, that did cost money. You are paying a portion of your commission for any lead generated from a realtor in that office.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a cost really that isn't necessarily up front. It comes with you get paid, and that's a cost of doing business.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay anything up front for something like that.
But it's still a
It
cost. It
still,
still affects your bottom line.
yeah, it affects the bottom line, but you at least make money to spend that
Yeah.
money. So I kept it simple, and I figured what I do best and had I done best for the previous 5 years was just selling mortgages. Get the client that has a need, get them pre-approved, get them the refinance or purchase they need, and keep it simple. That was it. Just get me on a client, and I will take it from there.
Quick 10-second break. Are you finding this podcast useful? Do you want access to more resources just like this podcast? Sign up to one of our online workshops or our mailing list, and we'll send all the information you need right to your inbox. Good advice is hard to come by, especially in a market like today's. Sign up by visiting treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer, or click on the link below. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. So, what was, I guess, from, and I want you to kind of compare your CIBC to starting your own thing. So, and I know you had a little, like, not little, just a time where you're spending it in a brokerage. What do you enjoy about entrepreneurship now versus working for somebody? What did you enjoy when you were with CIBC versus now? So just the kind of relationship, or the I would say juxtaposition, or the opposition of working for somebody that's reputed. Even though there's some risk, there is a brand, there's some kind of support. Whereas where you are now, a lot of the decision making, a lot of that, all of the, or most of the high level thinking is on your shoulders.
Yeah. So working for the bank is a security. You have a pension. You know that you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have referrals coming in every day, and your work doesn't tend to. You can leave it there.
Yeah.
At 5, when you're done, you don't give clients your cell phones numbers back then. But at 5 p.m. you were done. You could walk away, and really it doesn't linger with you or come home with you. So that part I wouldn't say that I miss that part, but that part was a good part about it. Even the social aspect too. You are going to an office, and there's still friends to this day that I have from that experience. That isn't is was a fun part of working for the bank. But I would say all of the things that are being self-employed, I prefer in the
Hmm.
end. And it's the stuff that's even at the beginning that we talked about, like you're not on holiday, but now after doing it for so long, you can take a lot more time for yourself. You get to,
Hmm.
enjoy time that you scheduled. So I like the freedom of being an entrepreneur and self-employed person. And you get to that point after you have established and created your business. And now I do have staff that helps facilitate the process and make my life easier. So things get like the harder part of being an entrepreneur is probably the first 5 years. But then once you get your groove and your client base and your process, then you can start reaping the benefits of being self-employed by having your own schedule and your freedom.
And did you have any hesitations when you were hiring your first employee, or was it kind of a this is the right way to go?
Yeah, like I'm trying to remember who that was back in the day. They're not with me anymore.
Hmm.
But we did start with an assistant, and there was no it worked fine. And then we had another assistant, and then I went back to being alone, and now I am back to having more assistants. So there was a part of like letting go of control
Yeah,
that was a little hard. But once you do it, my business went up quite a lot. So
because that is, I
it's just
find.
hiring the right people.
Yeah, sorry. Not to cut you off, but I found that like with a lot of entrepreneurs, if you're really good at what you're doing, and you're confidently going through it. Now hiring somebody, either you're thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna have to pay this person no matter what, right? But if you get over that, or if you don't have that to begin with, there's this whole mindset of, like you're just saying, I'm not doing the files. I'm not going to be drafting the emails to my clients the way I like somebody else. They're going to do it their own way, and your clients better, and there's all this other stuff that you've perhaps spent so many years not only learning but refining through so many situations that you've gone through, so many clients, all this information that you have that this person that you're hiring may not have, or if they do have, they have it to a lesser degree. So how did you kind of approach relinquishing some of that kind of control? Was it something where it was a gradual learning process? Was it something that you're like, I'm going to go cold turkey, I have to force myself? How did you kind of struggle or approach kind of giving up that control?
Yeah, so it came out of necessity. The volumes were too big to handle. So
That's a good
I was
problem to have.
forced into doing, yeah, it's a good problem to have. Um, and then, hiring the right people. So when I did do interviews, I'd always have someone there to sort of sit and watch
Hmm.
so I could get a second opinion on them. I was fortunate to getting my assistants through people I knew or through companies I knew. So there wasn't a level of, uh, like a trust there and a
Yeah.
level of confidence in them that I already had. And then as far as like, yeah, like I wouldn't say they went full tilt and all talking to clients. It was a gradual process where I'd maybe be CC'd on all communications to clients for the first couple months just to see what their style is. And really, I feel like they've all become an extension of me. They all have a similar way to email and to talk to clients.
Mm.
And the clients are always aware I'm still there, which I think is also key. It's like, hey, you may be speaking to my assistant Josh or Christina, but if anything comes up and you're not happy with what they tell you or you're not happy with anything, they know I'm still there.
Yeah. So they can reach
But
out to you
I'm
directly.
putting my
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm putting my attention into
Yeah.
the stuff that makes the business continue to go on, and they're putting their attention into ensuring the business runs smoothly.
I mean, and that's the other thing where it's like as you're growing, you're bringing in your experience, Whereas there may be a lot of like 80, 95% of work on a file may be done by somebody within the organization. You're really there for something that's difficult, that only experience can replace, which your assistants may not have.
Exactly. There's lots to learn in the industry, like
Yeah.
just because not every purchase deal is the same.
Yeah.
There's always some little like,
Yeah.
oh, nuance to it. And they've learned so much in doing it just because of the large volumes and deals. So but they always know that I'm there. It's like, Scott, this letter of employment looks wonky. The income on this deal looks different.
Yeah.
Whatever that issue may be is very much an open door. And then it gets to the point where you don't hear from them as much because they've learned through all these transactions that they're doing.
Yeah. So moving a little bit to some leadership questions. Um, how do you plan for the future of your brokerage? So how do you plan where you're going to bring it 10 years from now? And I know you've got your brokerage, you've got three co-owners, so you're one of three co-owners. How do you guys kind of come together and figure out where do we see this brokerage in 5 years? Where do we see it in 10 years? Like, what's the brainstorming that goes behind that in terms of the vision of the brokerage overall?
Yeah, so we look at the market and see what the sort of market trends are going forward. We also look at what we want. Like, do we want to continue growing? Do we want to continue maintaining? At this point, we're looking to grow. So we've hired someone called the business development manager. She
Mm-hmm.
represents our brokerage. So that's a recent change that we
Mm-hmm.
made last year. So we wanted to be able to attract new agents, but also we don't have the time to coach them, to be there to help them on every deal, to give them the training support and knowledge that we have. So this person is an extension of us in that sense. So any new hires now have like a personal one-on-one coach to help them succeed. So that's where we're putting our attention, is to build teams, but not have to manage the people, because
Mm-hmm.
we already have our own existing client bases, our own existing teams to manage, and it's not fair to hire someone and not be able to give them the time that
Yeah.
they need to make them successful. So that's really where we decided to put our attention, is to completely creating a new team with this new person. We'll
Yeah.
hire new talent. As maybe we start doing business a little bit, that will pick up the slack and maintain the company for years to come. So that's where we're putting our, and also
So,
just keeping up to date with technology in our space. For years and years and years, there's been one file submission system, and now in over the pandemic there's like 4 or 5. It's keeping up with technology and making sure that we have the right technology to give to our agents.
yeah.
These younger guys, they want, the latest technology, and clients want it too.
Yeah.
So keeping up on that stuff, and also just keeping our brand and trying to keep current on social media. That's another thing that didn't exist when I started. Um,
I mean, I think your firm,
yeah.
your social media, even though when you started, it wasn't there. I think, from my experience, you guys do it in one of the best ways. I don't know if you've got a professional behind this full time, but just how polished the social media and all of that advertising is. That's just a note on this side that I thought it was like very refined. It's like
Oh,
nice to
thanks,
look at.
thanks.
You see, like you're like, oh, okay, it gets to the point, and I think it's an art, but it's also a science as to what message you're communicating. But back to you growing your team. When you're growing your team now, like especially when it's going to a point where you're perhaps a leadership figure within the company, but these new agents coming in don't may not have as much of a direct connection with you as somebody on your team would, naturally, just because there's only so many hours in the day, and your kind of objective is to create the company or corporate culture and disseminate knowledge and all of that. So how do you create culture throughout the company? What is that culture? Would you kind of describe? Can you describe what your culture is, what it's like working with your brokerage, and how did you kind of come about it? How do you kind of make sure that you enforce it, or the leadership enforces it within the brokerage?
Yeah, so all these new agents know of me and my
Yeah.
business partners. We, in some cases, have been involved in the interview of them as an introduction, or I've done calls every couple weeks for them and their team just to sort of say give best practices and all of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot of communication between all three business partners and the team. It's just the chain of command is that they come to us, it comes to us last through our BDM,
Mm-hmm.
basically. So we want to be visible. We want to be able to show these new agents, and this is part of us attracting their talent too, is they want to come to our brokerage because of the amount of business we do, because of the awards we've won, and that is because of me and my business partners and the current agents that are here. So there is a all around sharing and um, distribution of information and access to information that we give these new agents. One of my business partners has every week a different call with a different lender. So every Thursday at 10 a.m., there's a new lender that
Mm-hmm.
all these new agents can join to learn about Meridian's product or TD's product. So we want to make sure that they're getting the education they need and the access to that information. And then our BDM, Anna, is responsible for your day to day. What are you doing to get business? Let me help you make your CRM. Let me help you draft an email to a possible realtor that you might send to business. Her goal is really to get them getting deals in.
Yeah.
And if the deal's complicated and needs help, me and one of my business partners will gladly step in to get that deal done. Whereas another brokerage, a lot of things go by the wayside, and we get a lot of new agents that they just didn't get the support. They were getting some leads in, and then they kept losing them because no one was there to help them put
Yeah.
the deal together. And that takes it takes a while to learn how to put a deal together. It's almost the more pretty you look, the more likely you're gonna get an approval.
Yeah. I
Same deal could get declined
yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah. And I know, I guess this is completely sidetracking, but when an agent's looking for a brokerage, I mean, there's different sizes and flavors and all this like that goes into a brokerage. Some brokerages aren't built to um, train people, and I've spoken to broker owners who say, yeah, we're not. If somebody's refined, if there's a certain type of agent they can take on, but they can't train, or others will just train. So really, like especially for an agent, if they're looking for support and all of that stuff, it really like they really have to be careful as to which brokers they join because you're right, they're not going to get it everywhere. They're not going to get that whatever support they're looking for. Some of them may just want underwriting. Others is like if they're going through a CRM, like there's I find at least most brokerages don't have the capacity to train for one reason or another. Most of them are looking for because the business model is very different for the longest time. Everybody is kind of a self-employed, figure it out yourself, but you're kind of working under an umbrella type of situation.
That's just it. Like we need to make sure we give these people tools to
Yeah.
succeed. Um, and that's really what we want to try to differentiate ourselves. Going back to your question earlier, what are we trying to do for the future? We just want to be a better company, whether it's more efficient in all different aspects of the business, to be a better employer to our current agents, to hire and attract new talent, to be a leader in the industry. We just want to keep it fresh, keep it simple to some degree, and
Yeah.
be around for a long time.
So just to, I guess, the last segment of the podcast, I'm bringing it right back to um, yourself and your successful habits. What time do you wake up during the day? Every day,
7.
7 o'clock. And is that weekends as well? Or do you sleep in during the weekends?
It's funny. So I think my internal clock's screwed up, but on the weekends, 8, 8:30, just fine. I'm kind of a morning person. The older I get, I become more a morning person. I don't mind it.
And what's the first thing you do when you wake up?
First thing I do is probably grab my phone. Second thing I do is shower.
Okay. And then when do you kind of get into the office? What's that day look like?
8. So definitely always in the office by 8 and at least until 5, 4:35.
And then what's the last thing that what you do before you go to bed?
Probably check my phone again. Or addicted to
Awesome.
my phone. No, yeah, I'd watch TV, read. I like to read, and phone.
And what do you do to kind of detox to kind of get your mind away from everything that you're doing in terms of your business? How do you kind of, I guess, not normalize yourself, but relax?
Yeah, like in the evenings, I tend to not work
Mm-hmm.
unless a client is in a bidding war situation and really needs me. I try to keep a separation on weekends and evenings.
Mm-hmm.
That way, when I am working, I am available and on. In my downtime, it would be just hanging out with friends, family, working out, getting in, going to the cottage, traveling, just anything that I'm not sitting at a desk,
Yeah, moving around.
moving around. Got to keep this body moving.
Yep. Well, thanks for coming on another episode. Really appreciate the insights. I'm sure a lot of people are going to get some great feedback from all of this.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Take care.
Stay well. Cheers.